सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः। ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणी। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैस्ताङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुःसुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः।
As you know, since last several years, we have been discussing one chapter of the Bhagavad Gita during this session of 4 days. And since a chapter of Bhagavad Gita cannot be covered in 4 days, so we select some verses from every chapter. This year, we have selected verses from the 16th chapter, so as to cover the main topics that are discussed in that chapter. This chapter is called Daivasura Sampat Vibhaga Yoga, meaning that this chapter discusses the Sampat, the tendencies, Daivasura Sampat, the Daivi tendencies, the Asuri tendencies, meaning the divine tendencies and the demoniac tendencies, which are there in our own mind, our own heart. The 14th chapter, we were given an analysis of the mind with reference to 3 gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. That our mind is composed of these 3 dispositions called Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Earlier in the 7th chapter and in the 9th chapter, there was a reference of the tendencies that arise in our mind due to these dispositions. The tendencies that arise in our mind due to the predominance of sattva are called the divine tendencies. Sattva means purity. When the mind is predominance in sattva guna, then there is purity, transparency, and light of knowledge. That is the most desirable disposition. What we want is that our mind should become sattvic. Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat, it becomes free from all impurities, becomes transparent, and therefore reflects the self, that is consciousness. And that is the disposition of mind when the knowledge can take place, when what is the very best within ourselves become manifest. Our nature is Satchit Ananda, we are Ananda or happiness by nature. Goodness is our nature, love is our nature. When the mind becomes sattvic, becomes transparent, then all these beautiful tendencies and nature that we have of the happiness, knowledge, love, kindness, all these noble tendencies, they become manifest. Meaning that when the mind is sattvic or pure, then it reflects or manifests the self in its true nature. Therefore, as our mind becomes purer, we start experiencing our true nature. And when the mind becomes completely sattvic, then we experience ourselves truly as we are. Therefore, our endeavor is to make our mind sattvic or pure. If sattva is purity, then what is impurity? The other two dispositions, rajas and tamas, can be called impurity. When the mind has predominance of rajas, then there is restlessness, distraction, craving, a tendency to project, see what is not there. Now project happiness upon the objects of the world, project unhappiness upon oneself, project happiness upon the objects of the world. This is what is done, what happens when the mind becomes predominant in rajas. Then there is craving, there is desire for gratification, sense gratification, ego gratification. These desires or cravings are there when the mind is predominant in rajas. The worst is when the mind becomes predominant in tamas. Tamas means darkness, ignorance, aviveka, non-discrimination. At that time, all the worst things that are there, the demoniac tendencies, they become totally manifest. Anger, cruelty, violence, hatred, all these become manifest when the mind has predominance of thought. Can we raise the volume a little bit? So sattva, rajas and tamas. In this chapter, Lord Krishna describes in detail how the mind is when there is predominance of sattva and how the mind is when there is predominance of rajas and tamas. So, Daivi Sampat and Asuri Sampat, the divine tendencies or divine wealth and the demoniac wealth. So tendencies arising in the mind, when there is predominance of sattva, is called divine tendencies, the daivi sampat. And the tendencies that arise when the mind has rajas and tamas called asuri, or the demoniac tendencies, demoniac sampat. Sattva and rajas tamas, divine and demoniac. So divine tendencies are described and demoniac tendencies are also described, so that we can identify what kind of tendency is there in our mind. If you find that in the mind there is craving, there is distraction, there is a craving for pleasure, there is a craving for name, fame, etc., then you know that the rajas is predominant. When there is hatred, when there is jealousy, when there is anger, when there is cruelty in our mind, then we know that the tamas is predominant. The reason for acquainting us with this is that we can make a deliberate attempt, an intelligent attempt to get rid of tamas and rajas and purify our mind. Because when there is purity of mind, there is happiness, there is goodness, there is success. And this is what we want in our life. We want happiness, we want success, and that happens when the mind becomes sattvic. When does it become sattvic? When does it become pure? When the impurities are removed. Therefore, we should know impurities are impurities and purity is purity, so that we can deliberately nurture and nourish the divine tendencies and also make an attempt to drive out the demoniac tendencies. Therefore, Lord Krishna here describes both these tendencies. Now, in so many chapters, this is the 16th chapter of the Gita. In earlier 15 chapters, in many places, Lord Krishna has already described the divine tendencies. The values have been already described. So here we find that the divine tendencies are described rather briefly, and the demoniac tendencies are described in detail, so that we can recognize ourselves, understand ourselves very well, and then proceed to purify our mind. We can call it the self-growth. So Karma Yoga has been taught for this purpose, and we will discuss as we come along when we understand the different tendencies. Now, what is the reason why this is discussed in the 16th chapter? If you remember what we discussed earlier, the 15th chapter was a chapter of knowledge. It's called Purushottama Yoga, where Purushottama, the Supreme Person, the Supreme Lord, was the subject matter. And Lord Krishna concluded the chapter by saying, Etad buddhva buddhiman syat kritakrutyasya bharata. Here Arjuna, gaining this knowledge, one becomes wise in the real sense and gains fulfillment in life, success in life. Meaning that whatever had to be told has already been told in the 15 chapters. And nothing new remains to be said after 15 chapter. Then why does Lord Krishna continue the 16th chapter? Because in spite of imparting the teaching of 15 chapters, if knowledge has not taken place, in spite of listening to the scriptures for a length of time, if you find that Swami is still, I understand but then I cannot do it. We know but still we do not know, meaning that we know Vedanta fairly well, and still we do not find the benefit of that knowledge. Meaning that the knowledge should make us happy people, loving people, wise people. And very often you find that the real benefit of that knowledge has not yet come to us in spite of listening to Vedanta. That means that there must be some obstacle. Something comes in the way in knowledge taking place or knowledge becoming steady in our mind. Sometimes we do understand. We get the glimpse also, but somehow it does not settle down. It doesn't become abiding knowledge. So we can gain the benefit of knowledge when it becomes abiding knowledge, when it becomes our nature. So what comes in the way of our gaining the benefit of this knowledge? We know Vedanta, we understand, and still we do not seem to get the benefit. So that is why the 16th chapter is discussed. What are the obstacles to the taking place of the knowledge? And what are the obstacles to the knowledge settling down or assimilated knowledge? They are called the Asuri Sampat or the demoniac tendencies. And then in the 16th chapter, the 17th chapter, in the first half of 18 chapters, Lord Krishna will describe the various tendencies of the mind arising from Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, so that we can get very well acquainted with our mind. We know what it is that we should support and what it is that we should get rid of. So now, let us now read the first verse here. In the first 3 verses, Lord Krishna describes the divine tendencies. So now we have become quite high tech. So this is bold enough for, I guess, anybody to read even from the last bench, Okay. So, please repeat after me. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Abhayam Sattva Samshuddhi Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti Dhanam Damascha Yajñascha Svadhyayastava Arjavam. Let us take up this much. First verse. If you proceed further a little bit, further. Yeah. So here now, if you can move it a bit left, because we are missing some words. Yeah. That was good. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha. The Lord said, meaning that this 16th chapter opens with the words of Lord Krishna, the teacher. Normally, the teaching should be imparted when a question is asked, meaning that only when the student expresses a desire to know something, in response to that, usually the teacher imparts knowledge. But in the Bhagavad Gita, in several chapters, we find that the Lord Himself takes the initiative. Without being asked, Lord Krishna on His own initiative gives a discourse. That is because the teacher understands what the student should know. Sometimes the teacher responds to the question of the student, and sometimes the teacher himself or herself knows what it is that the student should know, and on his own initiative tells the student. So here also, Lord Krishna wants to say to Arjuna, and will say here also, that because of the predominance of the demoniac tendencies, one is deprived of the knowledge. And when there are the divine tendencies, then the knowledge takes place. Meaning that listening to scriptures, thinking about them, all of this becomes really beneficial when our mind is sattvic. That does not mean that we should not listen to Vedanta. Swami, you told us I'm waiting now for my mind to become sattvic. I'll listen at that time. No. Even listening also has a very important role to play because it gives us clarity, and that also is a means of getting rid of the impurities. Therefore, Lord Krishna thinks that Arjuna needs to know this, and therefore, on his own initiative, begins the discourse in the 16th chapter. So here Lord Krishna lists a number of tendencies. What is a state of mind? A tendency of the mind, a quality of mind, a disposition of mind, which Lord Krishna calls the Devi Sampat of the divine tendency. Begins first with Abhayam. The first is, we have the word meaning here on the screen. So first is Abhayam. You know what is Bhayam? Bhayam means what? Fear. Abhayam, fearlessness. So Lord Krishna says that when the mind becomes pure, when the mind becomes sattvic, it becomes free from fear. Now, when the mind is sattvic, we become free from fear. Therefore, to make mind sattvic, we should entertain fearlessness. Meaning that we should try to give up fear in order for the mind to become sattvic or pure. Swami, what's the reason for fear? Everybody has fear. Fear is what every creature has, in fact. And usually, as far as all creatures, other than human beings are concerned, all of them have fear for death. So you find everybody always constantly alert and protecting themselves. Everybody looks around. Birds also, when they are eating their food, they always look around and see whether we are safe or not. So fear from death is a fundamental fear, is a basic fear. But human being has many other kinds of fear. Of course, fear of death is there because we are identified with the body. Basically, when we say fear of death means that I think that I am going to die, or I am subject to death, I am a mortal being. This is my basic understanding of myself. That I am mortal, I am subject to birth, death, old age, disease, is a conclusion on my part that has come on account of identification of the body, meaning taking the body to be myself. Earlier Lord Krishna has said in so many words that body is not the self, is not the body. In the second chapter, Lord Krishna gave the also example of a person having this garment, vasamsi jirnani yatha vihaya. Just as a person discards the old garments and takes up the new one, so also the self discards the body and takes up the new one. So just as I am not my garment, similarly also I am not the body. But that is when the knowledge takes place. Because of ignorance, I take the body to be myself, and therefore there is fear of death. If I am not the body, in fact, Lord Krishna said, Arjuna, najayate mriyate va kadachit ajo nitya shashvatoyam purana. In fact, the Atma, the self, is birthless, deathless, free from growth, decay, free from all changes. na hanyate hanyamane sharire. It does not get injured when the body gets injured. It does not die when the body dies. This was all told. But until this knowledge takes place, still this notion that I am the body continues to remain, and therefore there is fear. Sage Bhartavara explains, what is the cause of fear? It is said that attachment, asakti, or attachment is the cause of fear. In a very famous verse, Bhartavara describes many causes of fear. Some of you may have heard this verse. It says, Bhoge roga bhayam, kule chuti bhayam, vitte nruparad bhayam. When there is too much attachment to bhoga or pleasures, then roga bhayam, there is always a fear of roga or disease. Meaning that when I eat lots of sweets, lots of fried stuff, lot of junk food, because of my attachment to all this junk taste, etc. In my mind, I know that I am doing something wrong, I am hurting my body, and thus when there is excessive bhoga or sensuous pleasure, there is fear from death or fear from disease. Bhogi roga bhayam, kule chuti bhayam, vitte nruparad bhayam. In those days, when there is attachment to the wealth, always a fear that the king will take away the wealth. Those days king, these days income tax or IRS, whatever. So, fear. When there is attachment to, what is meant by attachment? Attachment means that I cannot do without something. That kind of relationship is called attachment. Possession of wealth is not a problem. But attachment to wealth means I cannot do without wealth. I cannot do without money. When I cannot do without something, then the possibility of separation causes fear. Raga causes fear because raga means attachment, means that my sense of well-being and security depends upon that. And what will happen to me when I am deprived of that, when I am separated from that? When we are attached to our family, attached to our children, attached to spouse, attached to others, always a fear. What will happen? Sometimes mothers or parents so much attached to their children that constantly worrying. What happened? Why the child comes 5 minutes late and mother gets worried. What happened? Where are you? Why didn't you call me? Why are you late? Always concerned about the security. What will happen? Attachment causes fear. So whenever fear arises in the mind, he says attachment to body causes fear from death, attachment to the beauty causes fear from old age, attachment to knowledge causes fear always from those who can defeat me in the debate. Attachment to my virtues creates fear from those who can find fault with me. And thus, so many fears are there in our mind. Fear of failure, fear of being insulted, fear of being humiliated, fear of being exposed, fear of all my limitations or shortcomings being known to people. So, constant fear is there, arising from attachment. Now, this fear is a big obstacle to happiness and fear big obstacle to knowledge. Therefore, Lord Krishna places abhayam, fearlessness, as the very first quality. And as we said, fear arises from attachment. So whenever there is fear in the mind, we should ask ourselves, what is the cause of this fear? Where am I attached? Because attachment means dependence upon something for my security and well-being. And the possibility of separation from that causes fear because then I am insecure without that. There is basic need of feeling security, and when I am dependent upon something for my security well-being, there is always a fear. What will happen without that? Meaning that we should progress to become free from attachment, dependence upon things. So abhayam, fearlessness. Next is sattva samshuddhi, purity of mind. So what is purity of mind? Is a very general term. So here it is explained that what is meant by purity of the mind is when I am interacting with the people, when my mind is free from the tendency of fraud, trickery, falsehood. So this is having something else inside my mind and expressing something else outside is called Maya. So this is impurity of the mind. When I tend to cheat somebody, impurity of the mind. So sattva samshuddhi, purity of the mind, meaning that making our mind free from these tendencies of falsehood, tendency of cheating, tendency of fraud, tendency of showing something other than what there is, this damba or the pretension. All of these are meant here as impurity of the mind. Sattva samshuddhi, a value for purity of mind. One, a value for fearlessness. Number two, value for purity of mind. Purity of intention. That our intention should be pure, our intention should be honest. So purity of intention or purity of the honest, purity or honesty of the intention. Meaning that there should be an alignment between my thought and my word and my deed. So, very important value here, purity of intention. Other kinds of purity will be discussed subsequently, but here, sattva samshuddhi, purity of mind, what is primarily meant is purity of intention. We should have value of having honest intentions, pure intentions. Because we are as good as our intentions. So, action is to be judged by intention rather than merely a form of action. For example, what is called violence? What is an act of violence? Having a knife and inserting in somebody's stomach can be an act of violence or may not be an act of violence. If a thief or a murderer does it, it is an act of violence. If a surgeon does it, then it is not violence, it is non-violence. Meaning that it is not the outward form of action that decides the quality of action, it is intention behind the action that decides the quality of action. And therefore, we should have value for honesty of intention, purity of intention is a great value. So, as the mind becomes sattvic, the intentions become honest. Or, to make the mind sattvic, we should also work for or strive for honesty of intention or purity of intention. Abhayam sattva samshuddhi jnana yoga vyavasthiti. Vyavasthiti, persistence in jnana and yoga. In the very first line, Lord Krishna describes his highest qualities, which in fact are displayed by wise people. A wise person is fearless. A wise person has purity of intention, purity of mind, and a wise person abides in jnana and yoga. Jnana means knowledge, and yoga means abidance in that knowledge. See, two things are there. First of all, knowing, and secondly, assimilating that knowledge. For example, we may as well know that Satyam Vada means speak truth. And I may be able to give a great discourse on what is truth. So knowing what truth is one thing, and being truthful is another thing. So Jnanam, in this case, knowing what is truth, and Yoga, being truthful. Jnanam, what is Ahimsa, non-violence? Yoga, being non-violent. Jnanam, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. And Yoga, being Brahman, assimilating that knowledge, making that knowledge mine, living that knowledge. So Jnanam is the understanding and Yoga is living that knowledge. Meaning that we should not be simply satisfied by understanding or knowledge, but then it should be put into practice, should be assimilated, and that is when we have the benefit of knowledge. Here in Vedanta, what is the knowledge? I am Brahman, I am limitless, I am complete, I am whole. This we understand. By being exposed to the teaching of Vedanta, we gain that knowledge or understanding, and then our attempt should be sincerely to assimilate that knowledge. What does that knowledge mean in my thinking? What does that knowledge mean in my words? What does that knowledge mean in my actions? What does the knowledge mean in my intentions? What does the knowledge mean in my life? Thus transforming myself in keeping with my understanding. This is called here, the word yoga means that. So Jnana Yoga Vyavasthiti. A wise person knows I am Brahman, at the same time he abides in the knowledge, and therefore he becomes Brahman. So Brahma Veda, Brahmayo Bhavati. Jnanam, I know I am Brahman, and Yoga, I become Brahman. I assimilate that knowledge. So in the first line, these three qualities that Lord Krishna describes are basically the qualities or the virtues which are possible for or which a wise person possesses. Meaning that when a person gains the wisdom and abides in the wisdom, then these tendencies, nature becomes spontaneous for him. And for us to become wise or liberated, we should cultivate this. Now, in order to cultivate these three highest qualities, Lord Krishna describes also a number of other tendencies that we should develop in our life in order that we ultimately develop these three highest tendencies. So, second line says, Dhanam. Dana means charity, a value for charity. What is charity? Sharing what we have with the needy. This is called charity. Basically, a value for sharing what I have. When I realize that I have plenty, I also realize that there are others who are not as rich as I am and who are more needy than I am. Then my heart reaches out to them to share what I have. But the question is, who is wealthy? Who is rich? Richness is something that I feel about myself. Richness is not measured by how much I have. Richness is what I feel about myself. It is possible that even a poor person who has one piece of bread, he may share half of his bread with another beggar. And perhaps even a wealthy person also may not be able to part with anything. So this adhanam, the incapacity to part with something, this is one of the problems that a human being has. It's called greed. Greed is the tendency or inability to part with what I have, even for those who are needy. This is called adanam. So dhanam means we have to overcome this tendency of holding with ourselves, of lobha, the greed, for the simple reason that the human mind feels insecure and does not feel that I am secure enough regardless of what all I have. A greedy or insecure person always feels that I never have enough. And therefore, a greedy person is the one who does not even spend anything for himself sometimes. A miserly person is the one who not only does not part with anything, he does not even spend for himself. And then his wealth is taken away by, once he is away. So dhanam, it is a privilege that human being has to be able to share what he or she has. These qualities cannot be cultivated by any other creatures. Human being alone can cultivate these qualities, and that's how bring about inner growth. Thus a basic tendency or a basic value of sharing what I have. But for that, a person should feel rich within himself. See, there is a story in Mahabharata that Lord Krishna wanted to test who is the rich person, wanted to show to demonstrate to Arjuna the richness. So Lord Krishna took the form of Brahmana, went to Hastinapura, first went to the palace of Duryodhana, and the gatekeepers, welcome this Brahmana. He says, may I have the audience of King Duryodhana? He is taken to Duryodhana. Duryodhana says, what can I do for you? Says, look, I am a Brahmana. I want to perform a very elaborate ritual, and for that I want 50 cartloads of dry wood. Because for performing yajna or the sacrificial ritual, you require dry wood. So what I want is 50 cartloads of dry wood. Duryodhana, surely. So Duryodhana calls his servants, says, first let this Brahmana, make him comfortable. And he sends a number of his servants to the forest. Says, you go and get 50 cartload of wood from the forest. Servants go to the forest, come back after half a day and report to Duryodhana, says, Lord, we could not get any dry wood because it has been raining for so many days that there is no dry wood anywhere. Duryodhana says to Brahmana, I'm sorry, I cannot give you that. Can I give you something else? Brahmana says, no, all I want is this, doesn't matter. So he leaves Duryodhana and goes to Karna. Karna is well known as the most charitable person. Karna is not a wealthy person. He is a small kingdom called Angadesha. Duryodhana is a very wealthy person, very powerful person, but with a small heart. And Karna is a small person with a large heart. So Brahmana goes to Karna with the same request. May I have 50 cartloads of dry wood? Karna says, sure. Karna similarly sends his servants to the forest and they come back in the same way. There is no dry wood anywhere. So then Karna requests his Brahmana to stay over for 3 days. So he says, let Brahmana, you give him comfortable residence for 3 days and we'll arrange for this wood. After 3 days, the Brahmana is called. And Brahmana says, when I came here 3 days ago, there was a palace here. Where is that palace? Karna shows the 50 cartload of this wood. So this is the palace. You know what does it mean? what Karna did is dismantle his entire palace and give to Brahma. Here is a 50 cartload of gold. So this is where the richness is not measured by what I possess. Richness is measured by what I feel about myself. So who can part with something? The one who feels rich from within. And therefore, a poor person also can possess that richness, or even a wealthy person may not possess. But we have to cultivate that quality. Lord Krishna Dhanam. So may you cultivate the quality of charity, of sharing and parting with what you have with those who are needy. So Dhanam. That is how we overcome the fear and the greed. Next is Damaha, sense control, control of our senses. We have 5 organs of perception and 5 organs of action. A mastery over this is called Damaha. What it means is that all activity, the sense level takes place by my permission. Hands do what I want them to do. Legs walk where I want them to go. Eyes see what I want them to see. Ears hear what I want them to hear. Sounds very simple, isn't it? But we may be sitting here and then you may hear some sound up there in the 2nd floor, and then the ears tune up there. What's happening there? Or you may be sitting in the front row, in the 3rd row somebody's talking tuk 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 tuk, and then the ears, they get tuned up. What are you saying? Even though we have such a loud voice and Swami is talking with loud voice, we don't hear that. We want to hear what's going on in the 2nd row. Suppose someone stands up in the 1st row and goes out, through the back door. It's very interesting to watch the whole audience. They all look at him and escort him all the way. Even though I am sitting here, they look away from me. They don't even know, by the way. We don't even know that it's happening to us. Meaning that very often this sense organs of perception and organs of action, the hands are doing something, legs are doing something, shaking. This is happening just habitually. That shows a lack of control over the senses. It's called Damaha, meaning a control over my senses. Being alert. Alert in what I am doing. Alertness is a value. Mechanicalness has become very often our way of life. Because so many things we do mechanically. We take shower and finished. We dress up, finished. Go to work, done. Recite Hanuman Chalisa, done. First line I remember, and then final, when last line comes, then it's all over. Sometimes people eat food also that way. Beta, how did you like this? Excellent, mom. Very good. The son is, going to work, and mother has prepared breakfast, and he finished the breakfast, and mother asked him. When then mother starts eating the same food, see that there was no salt in that. That's all never realize. Because the mind is not there, alertness is not there, mechanical. So Damaha, control over the self. We should become free from the mechanicalness that arises on account of lack of alertness. And so we can start, by the way, gaining control over ourselves with one organ. That is the organ of speech, or the tongue. We can start with control over the tongue. The tongue performs 2 functions. What 2 functions? Speaking and eating. These 2 things are done by tongue. we can start with one organ called the tongue and become alert to gain a control over what the tongue does. Thus, speech. Becoming alert about what we speak. Very often we are not in control. It is the tongue that speaks. Then we realize, I should not have said this. We say things that are not necessary. We say things that are wrong and later on regret. And therefore, we can start with being attentive to what we speak. Next chapter we will see, Lord Krishna says, what is called discipline in speech, what is called austerity of speech. That when we speak, make sure that my words do not hurt others, do not cause perturbance in the others, meaning that I must make sure that others are not hurt by my words. What I say should be truthful, and the truth also should be spoken in a pleasant manner. That will come later on. Satyam. So, attention with the speech. That what I speak should be truthful. What I speak should be pleasant. What I speak should not disturb somebody. What I speak should be necessary. Begin with this. And second function the tongue performs is what? There also very often it is not what we are eating, it is the palate that is eating. Swamiji, ice cream is my weakness. So when ice cream is served to me, one plate is over, second plate is over, third. It's not I who is eating. It's my palate that decides what I eat, how much I eat. When I like this pizza, some bada, something or the other, then no control over myself. Thus control over my food and control over my speech. We can begin with this, being alert and overcoming mechanicalness. And in general, a value for being alert, a value for becoming free from mechanicalness. Dama. Dhanam, damascha, yajnascha. Yajna means ritual, yajna means worship. That should be a daily worship in our life, a value for worship. Worship of the Lord. But Swami, I don't believe in God. Now that's a big problem. I don't believe in God, then there is nothing we can do to you. But even when we believe in God, we just give lip service to God. And so, yajna means worship. Worshipping Lord. Worshipping our Ishta Devata. In the times of Bhagavad Gita, yajna meant worshipping Devatas through fire rituals. That you kindle fire in an altar, invoke the Devatas in them, and with the recital of mantras, make offering to Devatas. This process is called yajna, meaning offering to Devatas. Now we don't do that. Now we make offering in a different way. At our home we have an altar where we make different offerings. Not only offering of the food, but offering starting from meditation. So dhyanam, avanam, asanam, padyam. So give the seat, wash the feet, offer bath, offer garments, ornaments, flowers. There are all these different steps in the rituals. So whatever, that should be yajna or worship of Devata in our life. Swami, why should I worship God? As an expression of my gratitude for what all Ishvara is doing for us. Unasked for, without even our asking for it, we are given everything. From birth to every moment, everything is kept ready for me. Whatever I need is kept ready for me. When a child is born, everything the child requires is kept ready. Food or air, whatever is required, at every stage, not only for human being, but all living beings, we find that in the creation there is provision for all of them. Somebody is well thought of this universe, and it is nothing but the compassion and the grace of Ishvara that is manifest everywhere in our life also. And therefore, the worship can be as an expression of our gratitude to Ishvara. Worship, of course, can be by way of prayer, seeking blessing of Ishvara also, because we always need the grace of Ishvara. We are not usually strong enough or capable enough even to achieve what we desire, and therefore we need the help. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara. Dhanurdhara Partha, the Arjuna wielding the bow, that's ourselves, and Yogeshwara Krishna, the Krishna is his grace. Both we require in our life. Therefore, worship of Ishvara should become a daily routine. That depends upon our culture, depends upon our, the tradition in the families, how you worship, what you worship. There is no insistence upon how the worship should take place. There should be worship of Lord. Ishvara must be in our life. In short, we should bring Ishvara or God in our life by worshipping, at the same time by remembering Him, by understanding what His role is in our life, by expressing our gratitude, and by living a life of gratitude. Dhanam, damascha, yajnascha, swadhyaya. Swadhyaya technically means recitation of Vedas. As the translation says, Swadhyayo adhyetavya. The statement of Vedas where it is said that everybody should study the Veda of his branch. So we all belong to the Rishis. We all have a Gotra, or we all are the descendants of the Rishis. And therefore, there is a traditional family of one or the other Veda. Who are you? I am a Rigvedi, I am a Yajurvedi, I am a Samavedi, I am a Atharvavedi, etc. And so, whatever Veda branch we belong to, in those days, it was the duty of everybody to study the Vedas, study the scriptures. These days we may not go to study the Vedas, but study the scriptures. Study Ramayana, Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, or whatever scriptures is traditionally there in our family. But then study of scriptures also should be a part of our life, a value in our life. Why should I study scriptures? Because what do the scriptures do? Like Bhagavad Gita, what do they give us? Bhagavad Gita gives us both the goal of life as well as the way of life, the view of life and the way of life. The goal as well as path. These are the things that are given by Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, a study of scriptures to understand what are the realities of life. Is there a purpose in life? What's the purpose of life? And how to achieve the purpose? How to make my life successful? What's the purpose with which I am born? Why the human embodiment given to me? What is the purpose? And how can I, in fact, this great invaluable gift that is given to me, how can I take the best advantage of that? So all of this we learn from the scriptures. We learn dharma, what is the righteous way of living, what are the values that we should follow in our life, what are the attitude we should follow in our life, what are the achara, how to conduct ourselves. So scriptures teach us dharma, the righteous way of life. They teach us conduct, how to conduct ourselves. How do I conduct myself as a father? How do I conduct myself as mother? How do I conduct myself as son? When you study Ramayana, for example, then this is what we learn. Because Lord Rama is described as embodiment of dharma. Rama Vigrahavan Dharma. Dharma of righteousness is taken a form as Rama. So when you study Ramayana, then we know What is an ideal father? What is an ideal son? Who is an ideal husband, an ideal wife, an ideal brother, ideal devotee, even ideal enemy, ideal friend? So ideals are presented before us. And how we can also attempt to live those ideals in our life. That's how to make our life worthwhile and successful. So this is all what we learn from scriptures. What is dharma? What is achara? What's the right way of conduct? Because in our day-to-day activities, we play a variety of roles. In different situations, we'll play a variety of roles. How to play that role? What is the script for the role? So Ramayana will tell us, Mahabharata will tell us. What is the role? What is the script for a father? Script for a mother, for a son, for a wife, for a husband. And thus how to play those roles according to script or dharma. All this we learn from scriptures. So Swadhyaya, study of scriptures, study of great books. They say that we should live with the great minds. And so the books are written by great minds, and those books we should choose definitely where we learn something, where we get inspiration, where we get direction, where we get motivation. And so that study or pursuit of that knowledge must be an essential part of our life. So Swadhyaya. Tapaha, austerity. Next value is tapaha, austerity. You know what tapaha is, what austerity is. Fasting is an austerity, for example. Keeping maunam, silence is an austerity. The life is full of austerity. In India, Hindus' life is full of, in every religion of course, austerities are prescribed in different ways, but Hinduism is full of austerity. You know, there are many people, I know so many people there in Ahmedabad in India. There are some ladies who hardly eat. You ask them, today is Ekadashi, then today is something else, and there is a Purnima, and there is Amavasya, and there is month of Shravana, and there is this month and that. Something is always there. They hardly eat a few days in a month. And when Shravana comes, then they eat once a day, or then the alternate day. And ask these Jains, wow, what is called austerity, what is called fasting? We have to really learn from them. A life of austerity. Meaning life of minimum consumption. Austerity is minimum demands. Minimum consumption, we have a value for consuming minimum. A value for, then you can produce maximum and consume minimum. That should be a value in life. So austerity. This tapasya we described in 17th chapter. Austerity at the level of body, austerity at the level of speech, austerity at the level of mind. Austerity means minimizing the expenditure of energy in this case and conserving the energy. Austerity in the body. For example, fasting. A simple thing, what do we get by fasting? There is a conservation of energy. When I fast, then the energy that is normally required for digesting food is not required anymore. Then that energy is available, there can be more blood flow in my brain, and thus I enjoy a more alertness. So the fasting is very, very conducive for prayers and worship and meditation, etc. So one of the things, the people, Padayatra, for example, the pilgrimage is also austerities. Even in those days, pilgrimage means what? A lot of hardship. These days, pilgrimage has become like a tourism, and so you have everything that you need. There are 5-star, there are hotels wherever you go. Even in Badrinath also there are facilities available now. But in the days when they were talking about, the pilgrimage was a great austerity because there is a lot of hardship. And what do you get when you go to Himalayas? Very little, and you have to survive on those things. Even today also, if you go to travel in Himalayas, even today also you see poor people coming from Orissa, the farm labor, from Orissa, from Bihar and places like that. They go to what we call Char Dham. Char Dham means these 4 shrines in Himalayas. The Yamunotri, Gangotri, Kedar and Badri, the 4 famous shrines, where 2 shrines are associated with Lord Shiva and 2 shrines associated with Lord Vishnu. Yamunotri and Badrinath associated with Lord Vishnu, and Gangotri and Kedarnath with Lord Shiva. It is usually a dream of a typical Hindu to visit those 4 shrines. And in those days, I remember we took Padayatra to one of the shrines, and then we saw so many people, poor people. They have a big, a load on their head, a Hawaiian slipper in their feet, and then they walk. We go in buses, we go in taxis, and we go in all kinds of things, and then, but the right way is austerity, is Padayatra. Once upon a time, we were traveling to Badrinath in bus with a whole group of people. And on the way, there is a place called, we were waiting there. And there was a dharmashala, which is where we took, rest. And we learned that the Shankaracharya of Badrinath also was at that time resting there. His name is Swami Swarupananda Saraswati. This is many years ago, some 34, 5 years ago. And so when we learned, then we went for his darshana and sat down. And so I asked, where are you going? We're going to Badrinath. How are you going? We have bus. And he says, look, the right way of pilgrimage is to go on your foot. Because when you go by bus or car, you reach Badrinath in one day. From Rishikesh, which is a warm place, you reach Badrinath, which is a very cold place, and you do not acclimatize. So when you reach Badrinath, the first thought is, when am I going to return from here? But it's so cold there, and there is so much hardship there, and then you go and have darshan in a temple, and then back you are. But when you walk to Badrinath, it takes 15 days. You acclimatize, number one. For 15 days you think of Badrinath all along, and that is how your devotion also becomes strong, aroused. Along the way, of course, you walk along the Ganges, therefore every day you take bath in the Ganges. There are many temples on the way you have darshan. There are many ashrams of saints and you have satsang with them. You see, imagine, those 15 days become an excellent journey, and by the time you reach Badrinath, you are all acclimatized. You are full of devotion for the Lord. And therefore, the experience that you have then is quite different from the experience you would have if you had a zip-zip, that kind of yatra. So therefore, because of this, next year we undertook the yatra of taking a walk from Rishikesh to Badrinath. And so that's when we experience how every day Ganges, and there are 5 also from Rishikesh to Badrinath. They're what they call Prayaga. Prayaga is when there is confluence of 2 rivers. And traditionally we believe that the 3rd river is hidden. For example, Prayaga is a well-known pilgrimage center where there is a confluence of Ganges, Ganga and Yamuna. And it is believed that Saraswati, 3rd river, also is there. Confluence there is called Prayaga. The confluence is a very auspicious thing. The 2 rivers flowing independently, with the confluence, when they flow together, that shows how 2 things become one, how they give up their differences and thus there is a unity or identity. So wherever there is confluence is considered an auspicious place. So when you travel from Badrinath from Rishikesh to Badrinath, there are 5 confluences. Devaprayag, Rudraprayag, Karanaprayag, Nandaprayag. The 5 Prayagas are there where different rivers, there is a confluence. All holy places, holy temples. And taking bath is purifying ourselves. Say that taking a dip in the Ganges removes all your sins, hopefully. So this is all part of austerity, by the way. Pilgrimage also is part of austerity. And India is full of these things. So people walk to the shrines. In Gujarat, they go to Lord Krishna's shrine. There are several shrines are there. Sometimes it is 3 days, some shrine takes 1 week, sometimes takes 15 days. So now of course that also has become very convenient, because there are on the way so many stalls are there where people are served food and water and buttermilk and this and that. So it becomes, I guess, a feast by the time you reach there. But as the time goes, human being creates more and more comfort on the way. But some years ago, that was not there. So tapaha means austerity also should become a part of life. Minimizing the consumption of food, of whatever. So minimizing consumption. Tapasya means deliberately putting up with suffering at the level of body, level of senses, level of mind is called tapas. And last one is arjavam, straightforwardness. Rujuta, like a rope is straight. So also straightforwardness. You know what is straightforwardness? Alignment between the thought, word and deed is called arjavam or rujuta. Alignment between thought, word and deed. This is Sanskrit Subhashita, famous one. Manasyekam, vachasyekam, karmanyekam mahatmanam. Manasyanyat, vachasyanyat, karmanyanyat, duratmanam. Mahatma and Duratma. Mahatma is a noble soul. Duratma means a crooked soul. What is the difference between them? Manasyekam, vachasyekam, karmanyekam, mahatmanam. Mahatma means a noble soul where what is in the mind, is in the words, is in the act. An alignment between the thought, the word and the deed is called Mahatma. Who is the Duratma? Manasyanyat, Vachasanyat, Karmanyanyat, Duratmanam. Something in the mind, something else in the word, something else in the deed is called Duratma. So we have to pay attention to this. What am I saying? What I am saying, is it in keeping with what I am thinking? Is my intention clear? Is my intention honest? So paying attention. And am I doing in keeping with what I say? It's a great vrata. So arjavam. Arjavam means a straightforwardness. So thus Lord Krishna describes in the first 3 verses what we call the divine tendencies or divine qualities, which we have to cultivate with an effort. Number 1, there should be a value for this. There should be a value for inner purification, a value for transparency. You hear the word transparent? Transparent administration. This is in India, there is a very word used, transparency in administration. Transparency, because so much opaqueness is there, So transparency is a great value. So meaning whatever kind of contracts are given, transparency, you make it public. So billions of dollars contracts are given, these are online, what was the quotation, how many people quoted, who was selected, what was given, what are the conditions, everything is made known. Anyway, transparency means what I am inside is what I am outside. Something very difficult. Honesty is not that easy. But the British people used to say, honesty is best policy. They're very clever people. Honesty is best policy. Because when I'm honest, then I don't have to worry about what I said. A person is not honest or transparent or straightforward, always has to remember what I told that person, what I told this person, what I said yesterday, what I said today, and all that. It's a very stressful life. When transparency is not there, honesty is not there, straightforward is not there, mind becomes very complex and becomes very stressful. Cannot enjoy the peace of mind. Just therefore to enjoy peace of mind, straightforwardness, honesty, transparency is called Ajavan. It's a great value. So, some of these values are stated here in the next two verses. More values, we'll continue our discussion tomorrow. But this is what Lord Krishna prescribes as what we should cultivate with an effort. And as we said, we should have value for this. A value for values. So some 33 different values are described here. It will be possible for us to cultivate this only when they are valuable to me. Therefore, a value of the values. We'll talk about that also perhaps tomorrow and continue tomorrow in the evening. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo